Gretchen Rosenberg with Kentwood Real Estate, and today I'm speaking with Heather Arrett Faircloth and Jim Rye, both in our Cherry Creek office. I'm interested in exploring how they work together. They're not a team, but they really do support each other, and they've built their real estate practice in terms of working together and being helpful to one another. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first, let me tell you about each of them. Heather Arrett Faircloth grew up moving all over. She moved 15 times in 21 years. So she really does know about corporate moves and relocations and is great at helping clients through that. Heather has been in real estate for 14 years. Jim grew up in Indiana, but he relocated to Colorado 30 years ago. He's been selling real estate for 16 years. And I just want to let you know that these two are exceedingly respected professionals, and we're so happy that they're a part of our company. They represent Kentwood and they really well, and they just take such great care of their clients. And so I'm happy to have both of you here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds, and then we'll jump over to what I kind of was interested in exploring, which is how you managed to support one another while not actually being a team, because that's pretty unique in real estate. It feels like people are either a team or not a team, and you're kind of a little bit, you're independent, but you help each other. But first, what was the catalyst, Heather, for getting you into real estate? How did that get started?
Because I moved all over the world, I always had an interest in it. We lived in many different style homes, depending on the state we lived in the country. And I loved decorating. I was originally involved in radio, TV, film, and helped find locations for movies as well, as far as homes. So it's always been a little bit in my background. And then once my kids were all in school, I decided I wanted to make a career out of it. And I wanted to wait until my kids were in school so I could really give it 110%.
Were you ever in a movie?
No, I was not ever in a movie.
I was actually an extra in Die Hard.
Oh. Yeah, I have been extras under duress when we've been on a film. But I helped find the house for Home Alone. That's my 15 minutes of fame there. I'm in the credits.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna look.
Yeah.
See, everyone has a cool, fun secret in their background that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Cool. So Jim, what's your cool, fun secret, and what got you into real estate?
I was one of those people, like everyone, that's obsessed with real estate. I owned a retail store and spent all my nights on realtor.com and whatever other, real estate websites there were back then. And it was funny because my CPA, I owned my commercial building, and he told me that if I got my real estate license, it would be beneficial in my taxes. And I said, when do I need it by? And he said, March. So I dropped everything and went and got my real estate license, and you had to hang your license. So I was hanging it at another company, and then decided to sell my own house, and it just all snowballed. I think I did 10 million my first year. So it just sort of took over.
And I'm not surprised when someone says, hey, Jim, you should think about doing this. You just go and do it, because that's exactly who you are. Like, that totally fits.
Yeah.
So when did the two of you start gelling as both friends and colleagues?
I think we met when she was selling my listing at 350 Gaylord. The first time you sold it, she sells that house a lot. But and we had a really good interaction. And I remember thinking, wow, she's smart. She's on top of it. She's a good broker. And I think I approached her after that interaction and said, hey, I've got an idea. What would you think if we just were totally there for each other? Because you travel, I travel. You can't always be with clients, and I want somebody that I know and trust. And we do it for each other. We'll do anything the other person needs, and we ask for nothing in return, not even a Starbucks gift card. And I remember Heather looked at me and she was like, I'll do it. Yeah. And it's really worked out great. And that was like maybe 12 years ago.
It was 12 years ago. We were in the same office down at Kentwood City. But that too was a difficult time in the real estate market, and to meet a broker who really took his profession as seriously as I was only 2 years in, but really wanting to take mine. And I really respected his work ethic and his knowledge too. And he was so generous with sharing his knowledge. That home was in Denver Country Club, which everybody knows Jim is absolutely the Denver Country Club specialist. But he was so generous with, if you had a buyer that was interested in that area, or if you had a listing, sharing his knowledge so that you could do a good job for your clients. And I think that was one of the reasons I really wanted to work with him. I played sports in college, and I've always been a part of teams. And I think that you can give a lot of value if you have support and have a team. And I love having Jim on my team. If I can't be there, I know he's going to give the same quality of service, the same level of communication, and really do a thorough job. So it's been a blessing for me.
The beauty of electronic contracts, for example, now is that I don't need to draft an offer for Heather, but you had those clients that were looking, I forgot their names, but they ended up buying a house maybe in University Park, and she was out of town, so you were able to draft the offer, but I had shown them the houses, and I was like, I think this is the best one for them. They really seem to love it, and it just really works out well. Heather's pulled comps for me before, because when you're on vacation, it's kind of hard to do things like that. But I think it works out really well because she wants to draft her own offers, and I want to draft my own offers. Now that can happen electronically. But if she's out of town and there's an inspection that's happening, I'll go to the inspection and open things up and do all that, and vice versa. So it really works out well. It's really about being there on site to either show property or meet an inspector or an appraiser or anything like that where she can't be there or I can't be there. And it's worked out really well. Though you have pulled comps for me on a few occasions, I believe.
Yeah. It's always worked out well. And I feel like we both want to give the same level of service to our clients. And we both really enjoy our career. We have fun with each other. He's got a great sense of humor, so he can always diffuse the situation too. But he's been fantastic. At that deal he was just talking about, we had looked for several times. They'd been out on trips. I was getting on a plane to fly back east to see one of my children, and as I'm sitting on the plane, they wanted to go see that, and Jim met him, and it was the right house for them, and it probably wouldn't have happened if Jim couldn't have met them there.
Like, weren't there multiple offers maybe too? So yeah, so it was a good thing that they looked at it then.
So it was really good.
And I feel completely comfortable that Heather will be professional when she's showing my clients. She'll tell them about other properties she might have seen, and I think it's beneficial too that I wouldn't have seen that house, so it helps my knowledge, even if it's not my client, to show other areas that I might not have had a buyer for.
Jim got out of his bubble. No, I'm kidding. I'm multi-million-dollar bubble.
Perfect. Two things come to mind as you guys are talking. Well, first of all, I just love your camaraderie. It's just completely evident as we talk how well you get along. But a couple things come to mind. Two of the brokers that have worked with us in the past. One is Marianne Lee. You probably remember Marianne. Just the classic professional who always wanted to help. And she was a different bubble than you. She was the Cherry Hills Village bubble. But anybody could go to her and she would know every property out of the back of her hand, and she would graciously help them figure out how to do a deal in Cherry Hills Village, even if she wasn't involved. So Jim, that's what you do for your colleagues. Right. And Heather, you do too, because you're a big mentor. The other thing that comes to mind is Julie Hummel. Julie Hummel and I worked together for many years, and it worked. We weren't a team. We were like you, but it worked so well because we knew we were going to take care of our client, or her client, or she my client, in the same way I would. We did business the same way. We handled these questions and these concerns, and that's what you guys have, which is so kind of rare. I think you're lucky that you found each other, and I'm happy that it works out so well.
One thing that works out well too is a lot of the higher end listings you have to be present for during showings. So when I get a listing, I'll explain to the sellers that I work with this wonderful broker, Heather, if I'm ever not available, because maybe I'm with clients showing property and I get a showing request and I can't be two places at once. I think it's horrible to say, oh, I can't show it to you today. Can you rebook for tomorrow? So I'll get on the phone with Heather and be like, can you go over to whatever address and do the showing at 2 o'clock and she almost is always available when I'm not, and vice versa. So it works out really well. So, and I brought Heather to meet, the sellers before, so that they know that we're not a team, but we're totally there for each other. And I want Heather to know the house so that she can show it and know when it was updated, know the square footages, all that information. So it's worked out real well.
Have you ever gone on vacation at the same time?
No, we
We
always
have overlapping days, a couple
just a little bit, but we always communicate with each other. If we're going out of town, we text each other and let each other know.
One day there might be one day, has happened where neither of us were in town, but I don't think we had anything come up that day either.
No. Gretchen, I wanted to say too, I think both Jim and I work really hard at what we do. This is our profession and it's our career, and our families, our spouses support us immensely. And I think Jim and I have an appreciation that we need to have some balance in our life too. And I want him to be able to have that balance and spend time with his spouse, and he wants the same for me. And I think that's the other beneficial part of this, is that he and I being there for each other really allows us to have the balance in our lives so that we can do our job to the best of our ability when it's demanded. And so I think it's been really nice.
And both of us, I joke, but I think we both work always and never. That's kind of the thing that I say. Like Heather texted me one time at like 10 o'clock at night, and I saw the text, and she was like, any chance you could meet an inspector tomorrow for a sewer scope at 8 a.m.? And I'm like, yes. Okay, good night.
We both say yes a lot. I've picked up brochures and dropped them off in milk boxes. I mean, there's honestly, we have an immense respect for one another. We're not going to ask anybody to do anything that, we wouldn't want done for ourselves. But like, I've watered plants for Jim, but how many brokers water plants for their clients? I do that for my clients. So when Jim is out of town or busy with another client and he knows somebody needs to do it, absolutely, I'll go over there so that he can give the level of service that I know he likes to give.
It really works out well, because you can't tell a client, no, we'll do that later, or I can't make that. You know what I mean? You really just have to be totally available at all times for your client, and it really works out well that we can cover for each other for those sorts of situations.
Mm-hmm.
But you've each managed to maintain your own brand as well, which is really the brilliant way to handle it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and we have never competed for a listing on anything. And actually, when somebody has, we had one listing in of course, Denver Country Club with Jim. And Jim offered to co-list it with me because it was somebody that I had brought the buyer for. And then the guy wanted to list it, and he called Jim because that's Jim's area. And Jim said, you know what? Heather represented you on the buy side. Why don't we co-list it together?
And he thought it was a great idea.
I get reached out to about listing in Denver Country Club. I'll often call Jim and I'm like, hey, if I get this or if they go through, do you want to do this with me? Because I know he's got incredible knowledge about the area. We both respect. I think the reason we've been able to keep our brand is I respect his business. He respects mine. And our clientele comes from, I do a lot of relocation in that executives from referrals coming in, and when they're looking at areas, we're looking at all over Denver, whereas Jim really is the specialist. Not that he doesn't do many areas, but he really is the DCC specialist. So we don't have crossover.
I've got a 2-mile bubble.
He does.
2-mile radius.
That's a good bubble to work in at that price point.
Yeah.
Well, he lives there, he works there, he's got, knows everything about all the historical stuff. It's a great resource for all of them.
Walk the dogs and meet the neighbors. And
I want to say too, one of the reasons I think Jim and I both been at Kentwood for a long time is the whole teamwork aspect. It really goes across the whole company. You can ask for help from, almost everybody, I would think, in our office. I've never had anybody not want to help with sharing their opinion on pricing or comps or staging. Or I think one of the reasons we're such a successful brokerage, even though we're one of the smaller ones, is we do support one another.
And all the brokers have not a niche, but they all can be a resource of knowledge in some area. It seems like I feel like everybody in our office, if I had a question about something, there'd be somebody I could go to.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it is a good office.
Yeah, I think that's true. I've said often I don't think there's anybody in the company that if you ask them, can I see your listing presentation to get some ideas, there's really no one who would say no. They'd all say, here you go,
Right.
take these ideas. And many times people have been called to compete on a listing. And when they found out they were competing, they said, well, let's just team up, just like you guys do. I think that's
Right.
very collegial. So yeah, we have a great company that way. Everybody's just here to kind of raise all the boats, right? And make everybody successful. Something you said, Heather, a couple minutes ago reminded me of one of the questions I wanted to ask you. So it's the perfect time. And that is, what do you do to bring yourself back to center? You travel, you try to have balance in your life and take time off. But what else do you do? Because this is a tough business and this can get really stressful, and you have to work hard at different hours, and then the income is up and down. How do you bring yourself back to center?
I would say two things. I spend a lot of time with my family, whether it's on the phone or just communicating with them about what's going on in life, and concentrating on priorities. But also, I have a really strong faith. And so I don't know if a lot of people, I'm not sure a lot of people know this, but every Thursday morning for the last 16 years, I do Bible study with a group of friends. And that just always brings me back to just like, okay, get back out there, put my armor on. But that really does center me. My faith is very important to me. And I'm just so thankful to be able to do what I enjoy doing with the people I enjoy doing it with. And it provides what I want to be able to provide for myself, my children, and my friends and family.
And what about you, Jim?
I think more than anything, I hang out with my dogs if I get stressed out. They can totally take the stress away. All three of them.
Dogs are awesome, and I love that they go in your swimming pool.
We both drink wine too.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a cocktail to help with
That
those.
helps.
Just little. A lot of people don't know that I owned a stereo store for 20 years too, and I'm kind of a stereo freak. So if I really have a bad day, I've got this crazy record player room, I call it, downstairs, and I'll go play records, and that takes my stress away too.
So you're a vinyl guy. My son loves vinyl.
Yeah, I don't even have a CD player on my system, just a record player.
That's cool. Very cool. You're a cool guy. I'm not surprised. So what behavior in the last 5 years, or what habit has most improved your life? Do you want to start, Jim?
In the past 5 years, I've gotten pretty good at saying no, I would think has been a real helpful thing. And also, if there's a toxic friendship, I just let the friendship sort of fade away a little bit. I think when I first got into real estate, you would take any listing, even though you didn't like the property and you didn't like the client and you didn't like their pricing. And there comes a point where if it's not right, you get better at just saying no. Your house is not worth this, or I don't think we'll work well together. So I've gotten better at saying no, probably over the past 5 years.
That's a hard one, very hard one, because we're all people pleasers in real estate. But it's so improves your life to be able to do that. Actually, Dee Shirafisi just told me that recently as well. What about you, Heather?
I would say I started several years ago. I think I've always tried to be thankful, but I definitely wake up every morning and kind of rattle off a list in my head of all the things that I'm really thankful for. And I just start off my day that way, positive, and just try to remember that there's way more good things going on. It's been really helpful during all this COVID stuff too, that there's just, as hard as everything has been, we're still able to do what we enjoy doing. We've got you guys working hard for us to make that possible. I'm thankful my friends and family are all healthy. I get to work with great colleagues. It's just a lot to be thankful for. And if you start off your day that way, everything else, it goes off your back a little bit more.
That's a great one. Those are both really good answers. So in our profession, there are often bad recommendations. Tell us about a bad recommendation that you've heard that you try to overcome.
Do you want me to start?
Pushing the market.
Oh,
You mean like
Pushing-
for a client?
Overpricing the listing, is that what you
Yeah.
mean?
yeah. I think the worst thing is when somebody says price it for negotiation.
Right.
You know, I think that just backfires every time. You know, if you tell a seller, you know, their house is worth $1 million, and if you price it for $1 million, you'll probably sell it for $1 million, and they come back and say, let's price it at 1.2, and then it sells for 9.
To negotiate. Yeah, then you've missed your buyer pool.
Yeah, you're chasing the market. So I think that's the big one.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else, Heather? Do you have anything to add to that?
I think definitely that. I also think it's so important to, you know, people used to say, oh, you don't need to stage a property and people can look past it. But I love staging properties. I like, this other reason I like showing Jim's. Jim's properties always look amazing. I want mine to always look amazing too. I consider it a reflection on me how a property looks. And I do think it's really important to stage, if not bringing in new furniture and all that, helping people go through their own stuff and staging their own items in a way that shows the house in its best light.
I completely agree with that.
I do too. And it's sad when we see the vacant houses and we know it could look so much better, but people sometimes don't want to spend the money, but you just leverage the space so much better and you end up selling it faster and for more.
Yeah, and then everybody's happy too.
Yeah. Yeah. So this isn't a real estate question per se, but it might be relevant to real estate depending on what your answer is. In the last 6 months or so, what have you spent some money on that's most impacted your life?
I bought a crock pot. During COVID, I'm like, what am I going to do? Weed out in restaurants for every meal. And you know, you can make sloppy joes in a crock pot. You can make soups in crock pots. So
Yeah.
I learned how.
For COVID.
So you guys are cooking now. It's not an instant pot, it's a crock pot.
It's a crock pot.
Yeah.
$89.
I'll send you some crock pot recipes when I come across them.
I spent money on this
Oh.
in March, and it has absolutely changed my life in more ways than one. I now have to get up before 6 a.m., but
Yes.
it's been fun.
But you have a COVID puppy. I know so many people that do.
Yeah,
We got
I was this close, and I'm like, I better not.
you were probably smarter than I. You're not supposed to make huge decisions when it's stressful or under duress, and I'm in it for 15 years now, probably.
It's a good time to have a puppy, though, because you're home all the time. You know, you're not going to the office as much. So it is a good time for a puppy.
True. And I'm sure when I take my next trip that Jim would be happy to watch my dog for me as well.
I will.
Good if your dog gets along with his, and you've got kids in town too. Won't they watch your dog?
Yeah, well, they've got babies, but yeah, maybe. Yes, maybe.
The best place. The best place, the Shiloh Country Club for Dogs. The Shiloh Country Club for Dogs picks your dogs up, delivers them. They take the best care. I think the dogs are happier when they show up to pick them up than they are when they bring them home.
There's the Gretchen Country Club for Dogs, and it's free.
Yeah, then that'll keep you too from getting another one.
Right.
I've been dog sitting since COVID started. I've dog sat for several people.
Have you?
I don't know why. They're not going out of town, but they're going camping and stuff like that. So yeah. But people aren't traveling like they were. So you two are both big travelers. Has this really impacted your, I mean, in the long view, we know we're going to get back to it, but how has it made you feel to not be able to travel as much?
It makes me feel a little sad, and it makes me reflect on all the good trips that I've taken, actually. So, you know, I go through my camera roll and look at, you know, the places that I've been, and I'm, you know, very thankful for that. I'm excited that hopefully we'll be able to start traveling again soon, but it's kind of been nice to be home too. And it was a good time to get a puppy.
And we live in an amazing place. I mean, to be in Colorado and not be able to, I mean, we can go up to the mountains and the weather's so gorgeous here and the hikes. I mean, we're going to be stuck somewhere. This is a great place to be. Every time I do travel, I'm so thankful to come home to Colorado and call Colorado home, for
You
sure.
could do day trips in Colorado too. We went to the Great Sand Dunes for a night. We spent the night in Pueblo, which actually was better than I expected. And and then went to the Great Sand Dunes, and then we went to the Royal Gorge. So we're seeing more of Colorado than we probably would have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I would travel. I mean, I went to Nantucket. I dropped my daughter off at college, but I was definitely very careful just because I am showing property and going in and out. So I have had multiple COVID tests as a result. And I probably would travel even more, but I don't like the thing being jammed up my nose.
Heather, you do so much relocation. Are you working with people who are coming to Colorado? You talked about our quality of life, the amazing weather we have, the fact that if we're going to have to shelter in place, we can at least do it where we can get outside. It's not humid, it's not raining. Do you have clients that are coming here looking for that kind of a lifestyle?
Yes. I just had a closing today. That was a gentleman that moved here from St. Louis. We've always had a lot of people moving here from other places. What's been interesting to me this year is we have a lot of people moving here from other places, but then a lot of people from Denver moving to the mountains, it seems like, especially from downtown. I've relocated several people that have sold their places downtown. Mary Ray's old house at 900 Clarkson, they sold their place to move up to Steamboat. I know another group that moved up to Aspen, somebody else that moved up to Vail. I don't know if it's just timing because they've downsized and stuff, but I don't know. Not many people move here and then move away. Everybody loves it here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got buyers right now from New York. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've got buyers from Florida. So there are people moving here from other places, even if you're not doing relocation.
Yeah. They're relocating.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that we're going to see more of that. And there is a little bit of an exodus out of downtown, but I don't see that as being long-term or permanent because downtown is such a vibrant community and there's so much going on, and McGregor Square is selling really well and Lake House is doing well. So I think that's sort of a temporary thing, but it's interesting to see how this is changing people's decisions about where they want to live.
Yeah, I think if people have had time to ponder things they considered before, this was when they chose to make the change, you know? So people that were living in California, Chicago, New York, if they've always wanted to move to Colorado and now they realize they can work remotely, let's move to Colorado. And if you're living in Denver and you've always wanted to get to the mountains somehow and you can work remotely, it's like, well, this is the time that we move to the mountains. So, but the good thing is we're all here to help them with all of that.
Yeah,
Right.
we are. So, well, we've had a really great, interesting chat. This has been a lot of fun. Do you have anything you want to say in follow-up to kind of talk to either your clients or to other brokers about the market or what to do when you're starting out? How do you want to wrap this up today?
I think everybody who's on the fence needs to realize that the market is going up. I've had a lot of clients who said, I'm going to hold off because I thought the market was going to tank over COVID. And people need to realize that didn't happen. We had a couple month stall and it is roaring back. I mean, I have 8 million under contract right now. And I think people need to realize that it's a good time to buy. And I think the prices are going to keep going up in Denver with all the people moving here. You know, I think it would be foolish to do the, sit and wait and see what happens with prices, because I think it's going to go higher.
Right, Heather?
You know, I always listen to Jim because I think he knows a lot. And he's made a lot of money off of
You
his
see
own.
why I like her so much?
Sells really well. I would just say that with everything that is going on in the market and the uncertainty, that is another reason I like to be where I am with the company that I'm with, and then also working with Jim, because neither one of us would sell a house to anybody that we wouldn't buy ourselves without telling them the reasons we wouldn't buy it or what our concerns are. And we also really, really take it seriously about people buying wisely. And, you know, it is an escalated market, but we have a housing shortage, and there are many tools to use to make sure you're still buying intelligently in a market like this. Jim and I aren't the kind of brokers that are going to, you know, throw out appraisal and inspection and like just everything by as is. You know, we always want to protect our clients and protect their investment. And I know the reason I like to listen to Jim, he's very well read, you know, and I watch, he reads. So I just, you know, and his opinion fluctuates based on the information that he's getting. And again, he shares it with people. So I look forward to working with anybody in the future moving to Denver, and you'll get both of us, Jim and I, helping you out.
Perfect. And the summary you both gave is spoken like true professionals. And that's how I know you, and I've experienced you in the years that we've worked together, that you just treat this very seriously, like a profession. And you are very steeped in expertise, and that shows through just in this little short conversation we've had. So I appreciate both of you. I'm thankful for your time today, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you both, and I appreciate Kentwood.
Same. You guys have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.